Greetings and welcome to the Semicolon Podcast. My name is Cantave, and thank you for joining me on today's episode number 3 of the Semicolon Podcast, where we seek to answer one main question. And that one question is, does the story continue or does it end? Where the whole mission and the purpose of this podcast was to set up a platform where we can take a look at what's happening around us, as far as the policies, the decisions, events and even persons that, have the ability to impact our lives and the lives of those around us, and to also give you the encouragement to keep moving forward. Because no matter what happens around the world, just as we saw with the pandemic, for example, life always continues. Life continues, and so will we. And so for today, episode 3 of the Semicolon, we're going to be looking at the title of the episode, which is SOS, Don't Do Drugs. SOS, Don't Do Drugs. Now, SOS is known as Save Our Ship, or also, Save Our Souls. And I want to first start off by speaking about the soul of a nation, right? The soul of this country. And the soul being our mind, our will, and our emotions. So your mind, your ability to think, creativity, etc., your will, your desire to make things happen, and your emotions, the way in which you process and react or respond to outside factors. So from there, I would then like to go into the don't do drugs part, which is particularly geared to our youth and our young people. And the reason why I decided to come up with this topic for today is because of a research paper I came across by actually Sematana, who is a professor in the Netherlands, and we're going to get into that a little later. So the soul, and the soul of the nation, your mind, your will, your emotions. Now, one of the things that we are aware of is that what determines our perspectives, our worldview, our behavior, and so forth, is of course culture and the way in which we are brought up, but also the way as individuals, also the way in which we, also the way in which we've been impacted as human beings, the experiences that we go through, the things that we observe, and also the way in which people treat us. We develop memories, we develop a knowledge bank even, and we use all those factors and the way in which we feel, our senses, we use all those factors, that shape our soul and contribute towards the type of character that you have and, the life that you live. Because so your soul is important because it really helps to determine the quality of life that you have. And so imagine on a national level, as a country, how would we, whether, I don't want to say judge per se, but estimate. Yeah, how do we estimate the position of our soul right now? Are we thriving? Are we doing well? Are we depressed? Are we in need of intervention? What is our estimation? So the one thing I also want to add is that while the latter end of the topic is don't do drugs, if you have done drugs at any time, don't worry, don't feel condemned or judged. This is a judgment-free zone. We are just going to have a conversation about the way in which drugs specifically impact our youth presently and have been impacting our youth, but also first now looking at the soul of Sematana. Save our soul, SOS. I do believe that we need an intervention, that we need help. And when I say intervention, I don't mean politically. I mean that we need professionals, people who are equipped, who are able, willing, and capable to help Sematana out of the rut that it is in right now. Now, from my perspective, the way in which I see that happening in one form, one fashion, is for there to be a bridge, a connection that is built between our young and old, between our seniors and our youth, and also the generation between, which would be us and older adults. I fall in line of millennial, although I don't really use that term often because I believe our generation got a lot of work to do. But that's for a different episode. But nonetheless, a bridge, a connection between our young and our old. Because while they may seem like polar opposites, we need each other. We need each other, us young people, and you older folks, some more mature folks, seniors, etc. We need you, and you need us. We need each other. Because as we build this nation, as we seek to establish the future, I have been hearing since, my kindergarten graduation that I am the future. The future is already here, and the future is still to come. But what has been done, as Malcolm X said, when he said, education is a passport to the future. The future belongs to those who prepare for it today. What has been done to prepare me, my generation, my class, when we were in kindergarten, then primary school, then high school, then college, for today? And what exactly are we preparing each other for, society for, this generation for, the upcoming generation for? What is it that we envision? What are the dreams that we have? Now, we can say, well, we'll leave it up to the hands of the young people. You come up with your vision. You come up with a plan. Where do you want to see yourself? But we have to build off of a foundation. And that is where our seniors, our adults, more older folks come in. And it's important because they were handed, for example, values, traditions, customs, and so forth. But essentially, they were provided with tools and a system and the like to be able to build a society, to be able to achieve or attain that which they envisioned, and that's which the older folks back in their time dreamt of. So, as we look at this island today, we, in order to save the soul of St. Martin, it cannot be that our generation, the younger generation, that we, are at odds with the seniors or the adults, etc. And we're like, man, I forget about all you, are you in? You can't keep up with the time, and you know what's going on, and you can't help me, and so forth. But also, the older generation can't continue or also have the mindset that, well, I'll use a large generation anyhow. I done probably going to my grave very soon. And I could care less what you do. But you shouldn't care. You should care more. You should care more because you have experiences. You have your mind, your will, your emotions, your knowledge, your stories, your legacy that you can give to the younger generation that they can build off of. And at the same time, we have ideas, we have vision, we have new ways of thinking, etc., that we can share with them, so that that a bridge exists, that a bridge exists. Because to get to the point of saving our soul and being able to ensure that there is a future, for us to enjoy a quality life of living, without that bridge, we have an imbalance in our society. And that is one of the things that we're seeing right now, particularly in the realm of politics. So what are the lessons that we can learn from the generation past and our seniors and so forth, our elders? But also, what are the things that we can implement to complement that which was passed down to us, to enhance that which was passed down to us? Because what is essential for the strength of a country? So we're now looking at having a healthy country, having a strong nation. In order to see that become a reality, then your soul matters. What you do in the inside, that internal check is important. Because if we decide now, as we're soon going to go into the topic of drugs and so forth, that we're going to make a practice or a habit, or even and develop not just an appetite, but even addictions that can alter our mind, our will, and emotions, then how secure is our future? How prepared are we for the future? How healthy will our future be? And so when we look at drug use, again, for those of you who may still be, listen, I ain't here to judge nobody, but we're here to have an honest conversation, and I'm soon going to get into the research that I mentioned about earlier. Because what is significant is that we start to take a look at the factors, the outside forces, or the environment, the elements that lead to or push people even into a life of substance abuse, drug use, addictions, and so forth. Especially when it comes to our youth, I could imagine there's some people who maybe feel like, well, what's a little alcohol or weed? I'm hoping not the higher grade stuff, but people do it, and that's a reality. But if you have a huge base of adults that see nothing wrong with substance abuse, because for them, well, I can still function, I can still do my job, I still got sense, I have a car, I'm living it up, I'm having fun, well then that is a message that will also be passed down to the young people, when they will be like, well, I will turn out okay, because here's all these folks indulging in alcohol and you name it, and cannabis and weed, etc., and they're doing fine. But an adult and a child, a young person, is not the same. Especially because we know, which has been proven, science, that a youth, an adolescent, just because we choose the age 18 to say, okay, you're an adult now, go ahead and you can vote, you can drive, and get a job, take out a loan and put yourself in debt, and you can do all these grown-up things. Just because they're 18 or even 20 doesn't mean that their brain is fully developed. It is actually till you reach about the ages 21 to 24 even, that their brain is really developing, that you can see that is a mature human being. So sometimes the excuses that we make is unacceptable. Also, when we look at the fact that drug use and substance abuse is something that people do to cope or escape reality. And as we also know, with the passing of the pandemic and mental health issues, domestic abuse issues, gender-based violence, and just that entire spectrum of mental health being exacerbated, right? With the pandemic, people being home and so forth, then God knows the level, the amount of substance abuse that's taking place. And so the study I'm going to mention is one that took place quite some years back. But before we get into those details, I do want to share, of course, an amazing opportunity, some good news with you guys as we continue. The Bel Air Beach Hotel, located on Little Bay Beach, is the only all-suite oceanfront resort on St. Martin. It has a unique combination of hotel, timeshare, and condominium facilities. So if you want to step up your ownership game, then you are more than welcome to inquire for more information at info@belairbeach.com to see what opportunities are available so that you can thrive. Take advantage of the breathtaking view of surrounding islands, the amazing sunrise and sunset scenes, as well as that of cruise vessels docking at our award-winning port of St. Martin. Great satisfaction and convenience is just a message or call away. So go ahead and book your reservations right now, or email to find out how you can be part of a timeshare or condominium owner. All this available and more at the Bel Air Beach Hotel. Alright folks, so welcome back to the Semicolon Podcast with your boy Ralph Cantave and SOS, Save Our Souls, Don't Do Drugs. Now I briefly spoke about, just that perspective about the soul of a nation. And again, I found that quote from Malcolm X, one that is so powerful and one that should be the driving force for the way in which we are intent about making decisions and doing things that help preserve and also help to develop our future for the benefit of this island, of its residents, and of its people. So when we speak about drugs now, and now looking at the study, this is a study that is titled a cross-national study on adolescent substance use, intentions, peer substance use, and parent-adolescent communication. And as I mentioned, one of the persons who spearheaded this is actually a young lady from St. Martin, whose name is Dr. Ivy Defoe, and she is a professor in the Netherlands. So what we recognize, and one of the things that we know, is that there are various forms of influence on our young people, and things that lead to them, making decisions that may sometimes be to their detriment. We were young too, we were in high school, did some crazy things. Sometimes it could be something as simple as skipping class, sometimes it could be far worse. We know that they, and as we did, had to deal with peer pressure and the like. And, we've grown past that, and unfortunately some folks, maybe not, but I'm hoping that majority of us at least, have grown past that phase of immaturity, but not just immaturity, but of, learning and trying to discover who you are as a person. So the difference is, though, is that the influences that they have are far beyond what we had to deal with, So besides, back in my day, after school we would go on MSN Messenger, and we had High Five and MySpace, and we would do all this fun stuff online, play games with each other. When Facebook was just created, we would constantly poke each other and, edit our pictures and so forth. We were still outside. So we started to stay inside more, but we were still outside. We would still go out and have fun, get together, do things. Whereas you're looking at a generation now where, unfortunately, even parents let a screen babysit their child. Let a screen parent their child. Let a screen educate and dictate the livelihood of that child. And with that screen, so social media, YouTube, television, just digital media in a sense, there is a plethora of not just information, but images, videos, content in general that is not necessarily great for a young person, and even great for a human being, period. But especially for someone whose brain is still not fully developed and who is susceptible to making choices based on, the appeal of things and so forth. So we know that they have peer pressure to deal with. They have their friends to deal with. They also have, again, their own soul, their own desires, their own will, their own emotions. But they have access to the whole world and beyond. So it's like they have the whole world and beyond. So how do they navigate through these things? We already know that, Instagram, for example, has played a huge role, social media, in depression among teens, specifically teens and our youth, because of, comparing themselves and the use of filters and all of that. But what happens, though, is that when we look at drug use or substance abuse, and in this study it's specifically looking at alcohol and cannabis or marijuana, ganja, there's many names for it, Mary Jane, etc. The issue, though, is not just the use of the substance, but what are the factors that led to it. Now, this study is a cross-national study looking at the use of cannabis and alcohol with teenagers in the Netherlands and St. Martin, but also a study that looks at highlighting the fact that you can't generalize studies and you can't generalize information or data because there are quite some differences. One of the main differences being, for example, the fact that prevalent rates of alcohol and cannabis use among youths on St. Martin are substantially higher, even more than double the amount than among youth in the Netherlands. And another factor that is here in this study that showcase, the cross-national result is the fact that on St. Martin, alcohol use has actually led or predicted cannabis use, the use of marijuana, whereas it's the reverse in the Netherlands, right? So there are different factors to that. One, alcohol. So if we would be very honest, especially as Caribbean people, we promote alcohol heavy. When people have events, even house parties, besides the food, drinks are like the main. Basically, alcohol is a host. Alcohol is hosting people. Tons of bottles and so forth. And again, this is no judgment. It's just an observation and a reality that we face. But also, and with alcohol being very normalized in our culture, it's highlighted heavily in music. Just our everyday society, you see, easy access to alcohol in the shops and so forth. I mean, we boast about having duty-free alcohol. So alcohol is cheap here. Come get your $2 beers and ice cold, etc. So it is very much normalized here. But when we normalize certain things, it's not just normalized just for adults, just for old folks. The young people are watching and they're like, okay, ain't nothing wrong with this. And if you drink, at the end of the day, the bottom line of, discussions like this is, people say moderation, but it's also a personal choice. But main point, but to stick to the point, right? Alcohol is everywhere, and sex is also used to sell alcohol, and that's a reality. So we know that these are the things that our young people have access to, but unfortunately, the use of it, based on this study, has, and especially that it's a high use of it, has also led to the use of cannabis or smoking of marijuana. And so while there's much talk, for example, about the legalization of marijuana in St. Martin, are we making use of such studies, and are we also preparing to do more studies? Because one of the things that this paper highlighted is the fact that there is so much need for more data, in the shaping of policies, steering of laws, and the overall governing of our society, ensuring that we don't implement things to the detriment of our own selves, to the detriment of our souls, to the detriment of our future, our young people. Because the thing is about St. Martin is that if you flash a little extra green in the faces of our leaders, you really have their attention. But the problem is that they tend to always look at the green, the money. Yes, this is going to be good for St. Martin, it's going to be good for our economy, we need to diversify it. All that is true. We need to diversify, we've been need to diversify. But we can't just implement something just because, we see it making money elsewhere without looking at how it's impacting that specific area or region, but also how it will impact us here in St. Martin. So, we're coming into election season. You're definitely going to be hearing more about legalization of marijuana. But what is the study saying about its impact on our future, on our youth? Again, I've been hearing that I've been the future, and I'm wondering, am I still the future of St. Martin? Or has it been passed on? And if it's been passed on, then what are we doing to prepare them for the future? What are we doing to ensure that they have a quality lifestyle, that they don't, end up, just living lives of addictions and increased substance abuse that will lead to an unhealthy nation and a weak nation. And so when we see young people, engaged in substance abuse, doing drugs, etc., drinking, smoking, and even vaping, which is actually worse than smoking cigarettes, by the way. There has been discussions about vaping here in the island. What we need to look at again are what are the factors that lead them to that. Is it only, peer pressure? Or is it only that the notion that we have that when they're young and they want to try out new things, that's okay to try out new things and to experiment and take risks. But this is where, as as those of us who are older, as seniors, as elders, adults, we need to steer them. We need to give them guidance. It's not that you specifically tell them what to do and they have to obey you and do everything you tell them to do. But we need to steer them clear based on our experiences, that when they want to try something, that they are well aware of the risk, well aware of the damage, well aware of the consequence for engaging in, substance abuse, smoking alcohol, smoking marijuana, cannabis, drinking alcohol, especially because their mind, their brain is still developing. Now, as mentioned, the use of alcohol is far more, in our youth, is far more than that of the Netherlands. And there are so many factors to look at, because a young person, adult, gravitating towards something that gives them a buzz or makes them feel good, that is not the root issue. And one of the things that we are well aware of is the socioeconomic position of, this nation. We have a huge percentage of people that make minimum wage and less. That is a reality. And so when you have young persons who see parents engaged in smoking as a way to get that buzz, get that high, or drinking as a way to escape, to depress, suppress, how they're feeling and so forth, they are going to mimic these things. And one of the things that is so important with information like this being out is that we now look at what programs can we create to ensure that we can save as many souls, as many young souls as possible from living a life of, being afraid, of living a life that is taboo in a sense. Being afraid to get a therapist, being afraid to address your mental health concerns, being afraid to tackle trauma, continuing cycles of darkness, of depression, of, deprivation even, because of either lack of education, because of either, beliefs and practices that, have been passed on to them while at home. And so we need to make use of such information and start looking at seeking more data, conducting more research into finding specifically what is it that is in essence leading our youth astray. It is not enough to just say, well, they're a lost generation. How can they be a lost generation when you bring them here? You brought them here. Those are your children. You may not feel connected to a random young person that you see on the street, but that you don't know what that soul can do for you in your old age when you are vulnerable. Because right now you're strong, you're capable, you're adult. But it's important that we help to save their souls, that we pass on wisdom, knowledge, that we are there for them, that we start showing up to schools and classrooms and giving more talks to the young people, that we don't be afraid to correct them on the street. Because what is the future that we're preparing for and preparing them for? We may, especially if you're much older, you may feel totally distant from, for example, the advent of AI, artificial intelligence, and the direction that the world is going just with that alone. But you can at least pass on values. You can at least pass on knowledge and stories that they can use for their current context. Because it is not good, simply put, it is not good that what young people and so much young people on St. Martin decide to gravitate towards is smoking alcohol, smoking weed, alcohol, and it's even worse. I mean, we've seen stories about crack and cocaine specifically in schools. About pills now being in schools. I mentioned just the alcohol and cannabis, marijuana, because that's what the study looks into. But overall, substance abuse, it is. We have seen it in school, but there's an alarm. There's a red alert sounding right now in our schools, and we need to tackle it, because the soul of this country, the future of this country, is at risk if we don't do anything. And so, just to read out some figures, because there are various stuff from this research that's worth quoting, but it'll end up being such a long program. So let's look at some figures as far as the cross-national research. You have where in St. Martin, 350 young persons were surveyed. In the Netherlands, it was 602. Another interesting demographic or fact is that 52% were female from St. Martin and 46% from the Netherlands. The age range in St. Martin that was surveyed was young people ages 12 to 16. And in the Netherlands, it was 12 and 15. So, as far as the prevalence of alcohol use, on St. Martin is 46.7%. In the Netherlands, 23.1%. Prevalence of cannabis use, 19.2% in St. Martin, 7.3% in the Netherlands. Prevalence of alcohol use of children age 12, 19.8% in St. Martin, 7.9% in the Netherlands. Prevalence of cannabis use ages 12, 0 in the Netherlands, 1.1%. Now we know, they like weed over there. Prevalence of alcohol use age 15, 67.3%. St. Martin, 49.7%. The Netherlands. Prevalence of cannabis use age 15, St. Martin, 37.3%. The Netherlands, 16.8%. Binge drinking within the last 4 weeks, 26.1%. St. Martin, 19.5%. The Netherlands. Drunk within the last 4 weeks, 14.1%. St. Martin, 6.5%. The Netherlands. Adolescents reporting that a majority of their friends use alcohol, 68.2% St. Martin, 44.4% the Netherlands. Adolescents reporting that a majority of their friends use cannabis, 39.5% St. Martin, 20.5% the Netherlands. And finally, percentage of who do not communicate with parents about cannabis use, 27.7% St. Martin, 25.8% the Netherlands. So the figure speaks for itself. The figure speaks for itself. What are we doing to save the mind, the will, and the emotions of our youth? Let me start say these, of our youth, as they are still in quite a development stage, and that there is such easy access. We are known to alcohol. Marijuana is legal in the Netherlands, not on St. Martin. Yet where are they getting it from? And so these are also things that require multi-level teams on the island, with justice, education, culture, etc. to get a handle on the fact that so many young people have such easy access to drugs and are using drugs. And one of the baseline things that we need to consider, as we seek to speak to our youth, encourage them, motivate them, get them on the right path. And it may sound boring, it may sound like whatever, because again, the reality is a lot of adults do drugs. It's a reality, a lot of adults, and not just alcohol and weed is very basic. But just because you do it and you feel like maybe it's all right, it doesn't mean that it's right that a young person would indulge in such a lifestyle, in such practices, because you don't know the level of harm that may be created in them, as well as the disassociation that's being made from really tackling the root issue, be it poverty, be it abuse, be it depression, be it different mental health issues and so forth. That is what we need to tackle. That is what we have to really deal with. But the baseline that you have that you see also is the fact that so many of them also choose friends who do what they do. So it's not just even a matter of peer pressure where somebody tell me, hey, try some drugs, and try some drugs. You want to smoke with me? Hey, let me try this thing now. It's not just that. Let's take a shot. Hennessy, Coke. I see all these type of different combinations. Let's try it out. Come at my house. My father don't mind. My mother don't have the issue. Or my mother don't even be home. Just come through. We run some game and we gonna try this. Whatever the scenario is, it's not just a matter of peer pressure, like they're being forced to do it. But you have some youth who, because of their environment and what they're dealing with, because of the state of their soul, and the state of their soul, they are in the life. They are deep into it. And what they tend to do too is not simply peer pressure, encouraging others to join them, but to partner with other young people, so then to create peers out of those who are just like them. So then what came to mind for me is that we need to do a better job at teaching our children how to make friends. Because if we'll be honest, some of us don't even know how to be a friend. Some of us don't even know how to be friendly. Right? When it comes to blasting your friends and every single year posting on let's say on social media, new year, new friends. Every new year you're gonna have new friends, you have a problem. And so what are the practices that you're passing down to these young people today? And that is what I speak about, the connection that is needed from the elders and the youth, because they've gone through life, they've gone through betrayal, they've gone through falling out with people, they've gone through hurt and forgiveness and so forth. So we need to preserve those stories, those lessons, those values, and pass it on to our youth, so that for them it will help shape their minds, about how do I select a friend. It will help shape their desire about the things, about the will that they have, and the way in which they will act on that, on their will, their desire and so forth. But also it will help them to better manage their emotions, to know how to react how to respond, how to process certain things, so that you know your number one choice is not to let me just go and smoke. That you become an adult that whenever you just to escape, to get to, you know, to leave this earth, you need to get high. You can't go a day without getting high because you're addicted. Yeah, I don't need weed to survive. I don't need to drink alcohol. Yeah, but whenever a memory, you're triggered about if that's the first thing you do to receive that rush, you know, the dopamine effect by way of a substance, then we need to tackle it at its root. We need to check our souls. And so finally, again, you know, some of the information I shared was from this study that was published by Dr. Ivy Defoe, a Simatna professor in the Netherlands, a cross-national study on adolescent substance use, intentions, peer substance use, and parent-adolescent communication. I am encouraging especially our leaders, policymakers, and parents, you know, make the time to check out this information. And most importantly, again, we need to save our soul. We need to save our soul. And don't do drugs. No matter what, don't do it. Say no to drugs. Say no. Just say no. You don't need it. You really don't. But again, as I said, this is also a judgment-free zone. And there are options available to you besides that, right? There is more acceptance towards going to the turning point, seeking a therapist, going to the mental health foundation. You know, those are avenues that we can take. But especially as it relates to our young people, we need to invest in youth programs. Because one of the things that hampers some of them is the fact that their parents and their family don't have the funds to enroll them in something that would, you know, build up their character and strengthen their soul. Because there are a lot of stuff available, but maybe it's not accessible based on finances. And we need to just do a better job, folks. And what helps a great deal is the way in which we communicate that. Don't talk down on them. You need to build trust. You were once young. You know what it's like to hold in information because you feel like, well, back then, I don't know how much licks people is given nowadays, but you know, you wouldn't dare tell your parents certain things, but you get blows. But we need to create safe spaces for our young people to express themselves, that they can be honest, so they don't have to take away from who they are as they are developing into adults, right? And so that the influences that are out there don't crumble them or don't take over their lives, and then we wonder, well, where are we going? Where this island going? Where the future of this country going? The future belongs to those who prepare for it today, right? So we need to prepare our young people from now. We need to address them, reach out to them, love them, empower them, speak life into them, and stop criticizing them, downing them because of decisions that they made or make. How many of us, did so many bad things, but people just don't know because it's under the rug, it's buried, it's in the past. And you've probably moved on from it. But guess what? They are the present, and it matters how we address them today. And having said all of that, the question remains, will this continue or will this end? Let's see. But I do believe that we can start changing the story. It may continue because nothing happens overnight, but let's start changing the story. Let's start reaching out to the persons, the characters in this narrative, and changing their course into something that is better, right? It is so pivotal. Thank you for joining me once again on the Semicolon Podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week at 10 a.m. either on Facebook or YouTube. And be sure to follow, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those fun things because the engagement is necessary. And for those of you who like to contribute or also advertise on the program, feel free to contact me, as you will see right on the screen. God bless you. Take care. Until next time.